So, federal prosecutors, headed up by special counsel Jack Smith, have just laid out their most extensive case to date against former President Trump in a legal brief that was unsealed on Wednesday, October 2nd. This is a 165-page document that gives damning details into the former president's efforts to lean on state officials and paint a false narrative of widespread election fraud in the 2020 election that evidence shows he knew to be untrue. The document is broken down into 4 parts. The main part being that Donald Trump engaged in a criminal scheme to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election, including misleading state officials, organizing fraudulent electoral votes, pressuring the vice president to not certify the results, and inciting his supporters to disrupt the certification process on January 6, 2021. Jack Smith also lays out the case against presidential immunity, arguing that despite the fact that Donald Trump was president at the time, his actions were fundamentally private, conducted as a candidate for re-election rather than as a government official. He was not acting in his official, big O, capacity for president. He was acting in his official, small o, capacity as candidate. Everything we can now read probably won't feel that new to people who have been paying close attention since January 6th. However, if you haven't been paying close attention, this briefing should feel shocking to you. Despite the fact that Trump is out here calling it a hit job, claiming this is just the Democrats weaponizing the Justice Department against him, that the evidence is nothing but election interference, this is a case that has been going on for 4 years. Everything the special counsel has on Trump is based on grand jury testimony, FBI interviews, and official statements from people close to Trump and Trump's campaign. The only reason it is being released now is because Trump has done everything he can to delay this trial, including using the Supreme Court to help him, and he has simply run out of tricks. It should also be noted that Trump is not denying any of the facts that are coming out. He is simply complaining that it's not fair they're being released this close to the election. The scope of this document is truly striking. The sheer amount of false claims Trump made, the pressure he put on state officials, the co-conspirators he worked with to orchestrate a plan to manufacture fake electoral votes, including submitting false certificates to Congress and the National Archives to falsely represent that he had won states that he hadn't won, the pressure he put on Vice President Pence to refuse to certify, and then the danger he put him in by tweeting to the angry mob that Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done, and then the firsthand evidence of an aide who ran to see him after receiving a call that Vice President was in danger, and Trump's response was, "So what?" It is clear that Trump's rhetoric and false claims about the election contributed to the escalation of violence, especially directing his supporters to march on the Capitol. And it appears, using phone logs and recordings, most which are still currently redacted, that Trump repeatedly refused to step in and stop the violence despite him being asked multiple times. Jack Smith lays out the argument that these actions fall outside of presidential immunity because the entire undertaking was in pursuit of re-election, not an official function. So Trump's acts were performed in his capacity as a candidate and were not in any way part of his official duties as president. The document furthers that case by pointing out that Trump's entire scheme relied on private individuals and campaign infrastructure rather than government officials or mechanisms, which only emphasizes that this is a private effort to overturn the election results for personal gain rather than an official effort to do something on behalf of the government. And despite what the Republican line is today, the one that JD tried to sell us at the debate, that this is in the past and they are simply looking towards the future, what we see then is right in line with what we're seeing now. Trump telling his supporters the only way that they can lose is if the election is rigged. This refusal to commit to the results of the election and this willingness to claim victory where there isn't one. I believe as this unfolds, we need to keep in mind that these documents make it clear that the special counsel has all the evidence they need to convict Trump. He has appealed and delayed as long as possible, which is his legal right, but he is almost out of time. And the only way he gets away with these crimes now, with all of this evidence, is if he wins or if he takes the 2024 election, and then he uses his presidential power to make it all go away. So there is going to be a real need for Trump to win this election that has nothing to do with the job of president, the American people, or the functioning of our rule of law. And I think people need to be really prepared for the chaos leading up to and after the election, because at this point, Donald Trump has everything to lose, so nothing to lose. And that puts us all in a very dangerous position. We should not be here. And I think if we want to come out of this a functioning democracy with the rule of law, we need to put our parties aside and we need to vote to defeat the ticket with the felon on the top and then pass laws so no one like him can ever run again. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. You have to know that this is not the type of man America should have as a president.